Indianapolis, 1959. The air shimmered with heat and ambition. 33 cars lined up for glory, and one man brought a machine that didn't belong. A car so advanced, so impossible, that it scared the legends of the speedway. His name was Smokey Yunick, and his car, it was about to change racing forever. This is the story of a rebel genius, a black and gold bullet, and the day Indianapolis turned its back on the future. The golden age of speed, the late 1950s, the golden age of American motorsport. Engines roared like thunder, drivers were heroes, and the Indianapolis 500 was their battlefield, the Super Bowl of speed. But while most men saw rules, one man saw possibilities. His name was Henry Smokey Yunick, a mechanic, an engineer, and a mad scientist. He didn't wear fancy suits or corporate logos. He wore grease, cigarettes, and a permanent grin that said, "Try to stop me." Smokey had already conquered NASCAR, building cars so clever they made officials scratch their heads. But the Indy 500, that was the big one. And Smokey wanted to win not just with horsepower, but with pure genius. The man who outthought everyone, Smokey. Yunick wasn't born into racing royalty. He grew up in the dirt, a farm kid with a love for engines and a hatred for limits. By the time he was 20, he was flying bombers in World War II. And when he came home, he brought with him a new kind of discipline and defiance. He believed that rules were just suggestions until proven otherwise. That mindset built him a legend and an enemy list. NASCAR inspectors called him a cheater. Smokey called himself a problem solver. So when he turned his attention to Indianapolis, the racing world took notice and got nervous. Building the impossible, 1959. In a small, smoky garage in Daytona Beach, Florida, Smokey began crafting something the world had never seen. His idea? To shrink everything, smaller, lighter, tighter, and make speed not with brute force, but with brains. He started with a tiny Chevrolet 283 cubic inch V8, the kind of engine others would laugh at for Indy. But Smokey didn't care. He tuned it like a violin. Every part, every line, every spark was optimized. He used a reverse flow cooling system, letting coolant run backward through the block to keep the engine cooler longer. He used streamlined aerodynamics, shaping the car's nose like a bullet. Low, sleek, defiant. And the frame? Smokey didn't use normal materials. He used aircraft-grade metals. Lightweight, dangerous, revolutionary. He called it the sidecar because the driver didn't sit in the middle. He sat to the side, almost inside the frame itself. It was bizarre, beautiful, and terrifying. The day Indy saw the future. When Smokey Yunick rolled his car into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, jaws dropped. Reporters called it the flying bathtub. Mechanics whispered. Officials frowned. This wasn't a race car. It was a science experiment on wheels. But when Smokey fired the engine, the crowd heard something different, a deeper tone, smoother, controlled, like a machine that knew it was smarter than the rest. Drivers came to look. Some laughed. But when they saw how stable it cornered, how balanced it felt, the laughter turned to silence. That silence didn't last long, because the rule book was about to speak. Too smart to race. The officials began inspecting Smokey's creation. They didn't like what they saw. Your car's too light. It's too narrow. The tank's too small. The driver's position is unsafe. Smokey stood there, cigarette in mouth, smiling. Every time they found something wrong, he'd hand them the rule book and say, "Show me where it says I can't." The truth was, it didn't. Smokey had built a car that broke no rules, but broke the spirit of every rule ever written. Officials scrambled. They changed measurements. They made new safety calls. In the end, they didn't disqualify Smokey's car for breaking the rules. They banned it because it was too clever. It was the moment genius met bureaucracy, and genius lost. The fall in the legend Smokey Yunick's car never made it to the starting grid of the 1959 Indianapolis 500. But in that failure, he made history. His designs, his cooling systems, his balance, they all reappeared in later cars, quietly copied, quietly credited. Even today's Formula One and IndyCar machines borrow ideas that Smokey tested in that small garage in Florida. But Smokey? He didn't care about fame. He cared about freedom. He once said, "If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying hard enough." It wasn't arrogance. It was philosophy. To Smokey, cheating meant thinking beyond limits others accepted. And in a world that punished imagination, Smokey Yunick refused to apologize for being smarter. Legacy of a rebel, Smokey walked away from the speedway that year, bitter but unbroken. He kept inventing. He built the world's smallest V8, tested vapor engines, and designed one of the first fuel-efficient prototypes decades before anyone cared about emissions. And when he died in 2001, people finally realized the man they called a cheater was actually the man who built the rulebook everyone else followed. Every time a modern race car hugs the track, slips through the air, and pushes the laws of physics, Smokey Yunick is there, in spirit, the outlaw engineer who saw the future and built it anyway. Smokey Yunick didn't win the 1959 Indy 500, but he won something bigger: immortality. Because true innovation doesn't always take the checkered flag. Sometimes it gets banned, and sometimes that's the only way the world remembers it. The car that was too smart to race was the car that made racing smarter. Hello, I'm your host, Kurum, and this is Engines of Time. If you believe that history's greatest machines deserve to be remembered, subscribe and join us next time.